Welcome to the Millionaire Mindcast, where we broadcast weekly interviews with millionaire minds from across the globe to empower you on your journey of unlocking a rich and fulfilling life. It's time to unleash your millionaire within. Now, here's your host, Matty A.
I'm excited to welcome into the show, Mr. Dane Maxwell. What's up, brother?
Hey, man, let's do some fun stuff.
Dude, first and foremost, can we talk? If you're not watching this on YouTube real quick, you might want to pull it up on YouTube because our backdrops and our neon lighting is fucking on point today.
It is. And I had an electrician install this and like wire in like plugins so I can actually use light switches and stuff.
Hell yeah, dude. It looks great, man. Well, for those that don't know who Mr. Dane Maxwell is, and I got to say, I told this story to you, and I'll tell it to our listeners. When I want to start building courses and communities in this online, world. There was one name I had a few mentors in the space that had some legit resumes and track records. And the one name that kept coming up was Dane Maxwell. So it's an honor to have you on the show today. But for those that don't know who you are, because you're kind of a behind the scenes guru, you're one of the early innovators that, didn't go on massive speaking circuits and 10,000 person events, right? You were more of this intimate connection and true value that you provided your community, and your resume and track record, as people heard in the bios, insane. But who is Dane Maxwell? How do you describe who you are to people that don't know who you are?
It's more fun to create than you could ever imagine. And, Da Vinci had how many inventions?
Oh shit, too many.
Because he just created. I think he may have had massive identity, but if you can find out what you secretly think of yourself, like the worst thing you could imagine that you think of yourself, and then recognize that worst thing that you think is only a thought, and then you hold that as real, a very real thought, but not true. Like it's little stuff like, a friend of mine's like, she's like, God, I feel like a cow, and like she thinks she's a cow. And so, I say, listen, have I ever told you about what real but not true is? She's like, no. And I said, well, it's definitely real that you feel like a cow, but it's obviously not true. You're a standing human being. But it was such a way to validate her experience. But
totally.
What I did next is I said, so what you probably need to do is really honor that thought. Don't reject it. Honor it and welcome it, but welcome it as real but not true. And see that it's not really who you are, but it's real. And her shoulders dropped and her body relaxed, and she went on to have one of the greatest nights of sleep she had in a while, because she realized the difference between believing a thought and noticing a thought. So, I mean, if we talk about noticing thoughts as real but not true, and then you find out the worst thing that you think about yourself is still only a thought. The bad news is that the best thing that you think about yourself is still only a thought, and that's not who you are either. Once you identify as the knower and watcher of thoughts, which is a giant nightmare of a challenge to do, but it's more worthwhile than any other pursuit you could ever do. Because if you build the metacognition, which means the be able to be meta on your own thoughts, to see them as thoughts so you're not so wrapped up in I'm unworthy, and so that means I need to become an influencer online, or I'm unworthy and that means I need to have $10 million businesses, or whatever it is. Because if you have a thought that says you're unworthy, the only difference between you acting out on that or not is whether you choose to believe it or not. But until you realize that you don't have a choice, it's because you don't have the metacognition to see that it's a thought. And a few other probably distinctions. But for the most part, when you realize that whatever you think about yourself is not who you are, you identify as the knower, then from that place, you engage in sex, you engage in creation, you engage in business, you engage in life from that place. When things don't work, you don't take anything personally. Because let's say you launch a product and your worth is tied up into it. And that's okay if it is, because it is for me often. Mm-hmm. I had a business that dropped down to $8,000 a month once, and $8,000 a month was really low for that business. And I was devastated because I was so identified. So I hired a coach to help me through the emotional stuff. I broke some identification with it, and then I was good again. But I got taken out by it for a while. And then so I got help, because this isn't necessarily easy stuff. But let's say you have been able to disidentify. So then you launch a product and it doesn't work. Natural, automatic, without trying, your response will probably be curiosity. Oh, it didn't work. What's going on? If your worth is tied up in the launch of it and it doesn't work, and you were having all these expectations and you were somehow going to feel better when the product launches, you're somehow going to feel better about yourself when the product launches, or if this is somehow going to correct some secret worthlessness you have, if the product doesn't work out, your automatic response is hatred, anger, screw society, why didn't it work? So creation is incredible, and creation with metacognition is the boss. It's incredible. And so if you think about like, who's Dane Maxwell, factually speaking, I've built 2 multi-million-dollar businesses. I've had an Inc. 5000 fastest growing company. I've had 15 students of mine that were all millionaires. I've got students that are number one in their industry. And you think about, if you want to become number one in your industry, or you want to become really good in your industry, or you just want to get something off the ground, learning to decide, like most people that are not successful at entrepreneurship do not feel like they belong as entrepreneurs. They feel like entrepreneurs are something other than them. Guess what? That's a thought. Once noticed instead of believed, disappears as quickly as you see it. And then you see that even the word entrepreneur is a thought. So like, then you hold that and then you see, well, God, if it's not entrepreneur, not entrepreneur, is entrepreneur, where do I identify with? Well, the addiction to identity will start to emerge. But then we see, man, we're playing such a bigger game. We're infinite potential. We are whatever we get to decide we want to be. I mean, Arnold Schwarzenegger is the perfect example of this. And I don't even probably say anything about it. The dude was the number one bodybuilder, number one in the box office. And people told him, no one's going to like your thick accent. You can't be a famous. And now people literally quote the dude, off of the chopper.
Yeah.
You know, like we quote that guy. So identity is only a thought. And when you build metacognition, so building metacognition is done through meditation. And meditation is very difficult to do. So for most people, so what you do, if meditation is difficult, if you're like, oh, I can't meditate. The first thing you do is you sit down to meditate, and then you actually hang out with the fact that you can't meditate while you sit and meditate. Then you'll start to see that you can hold that experience. Then you start building metacognition. We are, I believe that women would make me happy for so long. Parts of me still really do, and it causes me a lot of suffering. And when I start to see that I'm the best person that makes me happy, and I start getting that through the unconscious, then it's like, whoa, my desires shift quite radically when I realize that I'm the person to make me happy and I'm not doing things to make myself happy. So in terms of like, who's Dane Maxwell, I'm like radically passionate about identity because of how much it's both ruined and driven and helped my life.
Yep.
And I'm also really passionate about creating very profitable enterprises. Profitable because they are so harmonious. Like the customer loves paying for it. They love the price. They don't care that you make a profit. They're happy you're making a profit because you're giving them such a great service. You can ask them, you're like, how do you feel that I'm getting a profit off this? They're like, well, I mean, that's fine. You're helping me out.
Right.
And that's what I've even asked that before. I was like, I'm kind of nervous. I was like, well, do you care that I'm making a profit? They're like, no, that's what I'm trying to do too.
Exactly. Right. All right. So if the first 5 minutes of this interview are foreshadowing how badass and deep and epic this conversation is going to be, you guys better either pull off to the side of the road and double buckle your seatbelt because we're getting ready to go on a great ride. One of the things that I took out about that is your level of awareness and how much you've put in to exploring what truths you believe to be true and how those shape what you do and don't do and what physical results you get in life and how that whole loop plays over and over and over again. And I know especially for entrepreneurs and business owners, this is something a lot of people struggle with, especially nowadays in this crazy ass world that we live in. I'm curious, what is your spiritual and personal development journey look like?
What do you say they struggle with actually? What do people struggle with from your perspective?
Identity.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Right. And just,
we all are.
Absolutely. And it's one of those things where you kind of have to, at least I'll speak from my own experience. I find and build up this identity and then I go, oh, wait, hold on. Let me deconstruct that. And okay. And then I build it back up again based on experiences and beliefs and results. Right. Oh, wait, hold on.
You want to hear something crazy with this though? Can I tell you something crazy about this?
Of course, man.
This is crazy. Okay. Like literally crazy. Identity does not make you happy.
Tell me more.
What do you like? What I mean, you tell me. Like, just hearing that, what starts to spin in your mind when your identity does? That means if you pursue an identity, it will not make you happy. Identity does not make you happy.
Yeah, I think if anything, oftentimes when I think of identity, it's also part of putting me into a box that I am restricted in, knowing that I believe now through my own experiences when I've done that, that is what actually makes me unhappy. I feel constrained in the sense that I know as I put in more work on myself, that identity evolves and changes. And when I latch onto something or I hold onto something for too long, or I feel a hook pulling me one way or the other way, I feel out of congruency with who I am or what I'm trying to be or what I'm trying to find. It's a weird, I don't know how to put my thumb on it, or maybe I'm not even explaining that right, but I feel identity is often one of the most restricting things for people to advance and find what they're looking for and
you're saying it right. That's
achieve
good.
what they want and to receive the feelings and right. All of that. It's like I look at it like a fucking ball of yarn, right? It's really fucking tangled. And it's like, you're constantly trying to untangle it, but then get it organized. And it's, especially in the world we live in nowadays, it's a very interesting narrative and journey around identity and forming identity. What are your thoughts on that?
In what regard?
Well, in the sense of, maybe let me ask a more pointed question. What is the narrative around identity right now that you do agree with, or maybe don't agree with, that you think you should explore a little bit more that would serve them in a greater light?
Okay. So, we know, if you don't know, you'll find out through repeated exposure that identity won't make you happy. So you could be like Tom Bilyeu, founder of Quest, who built Quest and sold it for $1 billion and then found out he wasn't any happier after he sold it. He's like, he told his wife, I'm not even any happier. What's going on? We buy into the illusion that when something happens, it'll make us happy. But we end up violating one of the most fundamental truths, is that for the most part, most of us, we are already happy. That's who we are. And we are already free. That's who we are. The reason we might not feel happy or free is because we're so transfixed on trying to fix thoughts that we believe. Or we're fixated on an issue that we're incongruent with in our life. But for the most part, we are already happy. So this totally rocks my brain when I say it. And let's look at, I had a very specific example with this, but it'll probably come to me. But this identity stuff, what I want to embark, if you look at like myself, I believe something was wrong with me for a very long time.
What did you believe?
Just that's it. Something's wrong with me.
Okay.
Like a deeper identity, loser. Like I'm a loser. And that was believed so strongly, and still I can feel it. And the difference is there's less identification with it. So I pursued, like a banshee, success to a insanely addictive degree to try to correct the identity.
So you felt like achieve, therefore I'm not a loser.
It was more get recognized.
Got it. Be seen.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then I'm not. But the fucked up part about that is, to the part of, like, it actually ended up reinforcing the identity of loser. Because if we take action to correct the identity, we end up reinforcing that it's there. So the narrative around identity that I don't agree with is that the identity needs to, and like we want to be gentle with this word, because like our brain structures, our personalities can get built around this, and then they'll fire certain neural patterns. Like, let's say, like for me, in my brain, most of my brain was wired around believing I'm unlovable. So that means if a loving woman approaches me, the thought loving woman approaches and it seems so threatening to my brain, it kicks me into survival and I run away from the woman and I don't even know what's going on. So like when we talk about identity, it's like, oh, hey, I noticed your identity, you're good to go. It's more like I gently hold these things. So the narrative I don't agree with is that most identity programs will tell you, here's how you change it. Here's how you fix it. Here's how you remove it. Here's how you upgrade it. But those methods, unfortunately, reinforce that there's a problem to begin with in a very subtle way. If you're trying to change an identity, what you're communicating with it is that you're not okay that it's there. And ironically, the way to work with the identity is to hold it as okay and see it as real, but not true. And when you do that, dude, you're free. You're free. No thought can define you. And you just hold it all. And then you see, you're like, oh my God, I am infinite potential. That's more of a description of me than anything else. And I've had the pleasure of tapping into this field before, and I have been admittedly scared to go back because if I had, maybe I'll have words for it in a moment. Because when I went in there, I saw the worthless narrative and I saw the worthy narrative.
Yep.
And neither of them could even like compute. Like if you put that code into the state that I was in, like it wouldn't even it'd be like that. What, we don't even know how to parse. What does worthy, what are those are stories. They don't mean anything. Like I got to a space where like no narrative existed. And it was like just a isness. And from that place, I had clarity on my relationship. I had clarity on my life. I had clarity in what I wanted to do next. And it wasn't any sort of like effort to have it. The way that I got there was I realized how much pain I was in the moment. And I realized how much I'd been trying to change the pain. And when I noticed both the pain that I was in and the desire to change it, and I held both of those, and I'm actually starting to kind of maybe slip into that space again, I got to taste a sort of boundless place where I could fly.
Yeah. Surrendering a little bit to it.
Surrendering, yes, exactly right. But it's knowing what to surrender to.
Yeah.
Because
and it's your awareness, right? I mean, you've talked about this, how to build metacognition.
Yeah.
And just in general, the awareness that I feel a lot of people lack on a daily basis. Therefore, they're opted into something else that doesn't serve them or really is friction going against what they feel they want to be pushed towards or pulled towards, but they are unaware that they don't have two hands on the steering wheel and they're going across the freeway left and right. How have you been able to, has it just been true meditation and awareness, or how do you keep that awareness up on a daily basis, especially in the entrepreneurial world or just in life in general that we live in, where there's so many highs and lows and in-betweens?
I get a lot of help. I get a lot of help from really remarkable people.
What does that look like?
One-on-one coaching. Like I'm creating a course that helps people quit their job. So it's, quit your job quick. It's about how to build a Facebook advertising agency, because those businesses are crazy cash cows.
Yep.
And so I've got an expert that's really good at that teaching, and the expert gets on and he starts teaching and I start shutting down. My brain literally can't hang with this guy and I can't fight it. I just literally shut down. So in that instance, because of what I know an identity is triggered. So I go to my coach and I say, listen, I got this situation where an identity is triggered and my brain is shutting down. And so we go into it, and then we get into some sort of familial karma around like genetically feeling like a failure, and like family line feeling like the men feel like failures, or whether they do or not. What I felt was like, I got to touch the identity of failure, which is a rough road to get to. And then when I actually feel failure completely without any resistance, it's a pretty fluid experience. And when I felt that, it sort of passed through my system. And then the next time I met with a guy, my brain wasn't shutting down as much, or if at all. Really, really stark difference. But to get there took help from a coach. And you need coaches that understand how gentle and sensitive identity needs to be worked with. But this, to me, is the most important game we could play. And so it becomes like, what are you committed to in the world? And how honest can you be about what that real commitment is? And I really, really want to love people. And it's hard to say that as a man. But that's what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so.
Do you feel like you're doing that?
Yeah. I also feel like my ego is pretty big. So.
How do you handle that? Because there's like a balance, right? Like there's a lot of entrepreneurs and successful people and big achievers that almost say like, I did it because of my ego, but I also had to find this balance to make sure it doesn't destroy me. How do you do that?
So my ego doesn't show up in achievement anymore. It shows up in having distinctive knowledge. That's where I get, it's a trippy road for me to get identified. I have a mentor of mine, and because of him, this is why I can tell you all this. There's one man that has taught me this more than anything else in the world. And I'd give you his name, but there's nothing online about him. He's a random guy I found in Nashville. And so he actually created a step-by-step methodology to make friends with your mind exactly as it is. And the fastest way you do that is you sit still and let the worst thing come up. And when the worst thing comes up because you're sitting still, you work to make friends with it. And we were actually putting a course together that's very basic and rudimentary, but it goes into like, what are your aversions? What are your cravings? What are your identifications? And you kind of wake up from this mild dazed depression into a state of well-being by literally making friends with your mind exactly the way it is.
Dude, I want to know more about that. I want to know more. That sounds amazing. And you know what's funny? Well, it's kind of, you know what reminds me too is like kind of reminds me of like Chinese food in the sense of, bear with me for a second.
Sure.
Some of the best food that you find are those non-advertised, hole-in-the-wall places that it just kind of is like the synergies and synchronicities of the world that led you into that little hole-in-the-wall shop, and they had the best Chinese food, right? I also find that with people oftentimes. It's not the most advertised people or the most advertised courses or the most advertised, again, like, yes, the people at the top are often there for a reason. And I've also found like the best gems are hidden in the dirt, right? And you just kind of have to be traveling and adventurous and putting yourself out there and walking the path and aware enough to look down and be like, oh, there it is. What am I going to do with this?
Yes, sir. Yeah, he's incredible. And he used to be a really successful day trader. And then he found this secret to well-being. And then once he found that, he's like, oh, screw day trading. He stares at trees and he feels incredible.
That's interesting because when you think about people who have, I don't want to say money has been their master, right? But someone who has been day trading day in and day out, and how much do I make that day and how much did I lose that day, to go from that to that shows a lot of awareness and discipline and also just alignment with your core values to do what ultimately you feel serves your soul, right?
Yes. I mean, if you taste the kind of well-being that is really available to us, like the deep sense of rest and well-being that's available, and your nervous system starts accessing it more and more on a regular basis, you start to notice when you get agitated and you don't want to do things that agitate you. And day trading is very agitating for him. It was.
Yep.
And so But like, for example, let's say everybody listening, you're having an experience right now listening to me. Maybe you're confused. You're like, what's this guy talking about? Maybe it's really clicking for you. Maybe you're jealous. Maybe you feel angry. Maybe you feel scared. Or even maybe you feel a little bit lonely right now. Whatever the feeling is you're having. Right now, whatever feeling you're having, you are only experiencing your own mind. That's it. You're experiencing your own mind in response to what you're hearing. So notice that, what you're feeling right now is an experience. Then I'll ask you a question. What within you is watching to notice that you're actually having that experience? There's a place in you that's actually aware enough to see that you do feel this experience right now. That place that's watching, that's the place where you learn to identify from. And it's really cool. It's instantly clear. It's instantly focused. It's amazing. It's really like almost like a secret. Like you feel it and you're like, oh my God, I've been trying to fix something my whole life.
Yeah. You know, one of the things that, and I'll just speak from my own experience and not say everybody, but one of my experiences as an entrepreneur and somebody that wants to build big things and big dreams and live a big life and big income and all of these big things, right? Like conquer. And then also this, you know, getting out of the head and into the heart and being more present and focusing on the things that matter most and changing the narrative and having the audio match the video and the actions that I'm taking. You know, how have you seen, and maybe from your own experience or other individuals successful that you've worked with, strike that balance within themselves of, is there a balance between being a conqueror and an achiever and being extremely present and intuitive and creative and connected to source as you go after those things?
Oh, yes. I think so.
Tell me more.
I do think so. Well, it's like it's our humanity to, like, it's in a male's genes to be combative. You know, like it's in a male's gene. Doesn't upset me. Like that's like how we're wired.
Yep.
It's like part of the process is really honoring everything that arises.
Yeah.
When you're okay with any experience you're feeling, you're in great territory. I want to make the video. It's very hard because our unconscious has all these opinions about, does this moment matter? No. This moment over here will matter. Does like your unconscious, like right now, is probably even selecting, does this moment matter? No, this moment doesn't matter. And you're like, if you just become aware of like, oh, I've been trying to decide if this moment matters or not. And then you access that, boom, you pop into a deeper place of awareness and you're like, whoa. So I think it's a beautiful thing to honor, acknowledge, and hear and see every impulse that we have and see that they're all okay. And I can tell you, and I've got a picture behind me on my wall, it's got a quote at the bottom of it, and it says, you will know how to act when you know who you are.
Ooh.
And so when I say, like, we talk about what do you secretly think of yourself, and you can start seeing, oh, that's just a thought, and you start to move into this place of deep awareness, I think that we'll all have crystal clear clarity on what it is that we're supposed to be doing in this moment. And no one can tell you. That's the unfortunate part. And it's also really fortunate.
Yeah. When do you feel like you had that, I don't know if awakening is the right word, but
never.
When did that resonate with you in a way that allowed you to, okay, take a little pressure off yourself? Because that's something I know entrepreneurs and high achievers, we put so much damn pressure on ourselves. And you said a key, a phrase that was emphasized and stuck out to me, which is know yourself. One, I don't think a lot of people, it's scary to go through the shit of trying to figure out who you are and knowing yourself. And then the other question I ask is how do you know when you really know yourself?
Well, let's just take something like my greatest present challenge is having very strong visceral attractions or compulsions towards extremely attractive women. Like extremely attractive women just trigger the crap out of me. And like, I know I've got some like sexual issues in terms of like the energy's not flowing freely.
Mm.
So I get angry about that. And then I'll try to fix that. And no. So what I do then is I'm like, I'm trying to fix this sort of sexual block. Okay, I'm craving a highly attractive woman to do this. Wait, I've got a highly attractive woman that loves me. No, reject. Okay, now I'm rejecting that. Whoa, if I won't let the woman in that's in front of me right now, and I'm craving an attractive woman over here, and then I just sit and notice that, and then I get curious about the identity that's driving all that, and then I see a man that's terrified to be loved. And then if I look at that, terrified to be loved maybe, and then I hold all that, then immediately that attractive woman that was so triggering now just becomes like a passing raindrop. It no longer has that, like I don't have to go. But I got there by being super honest with every aspect of my experience. And thankfully, I have a very trusting partner who can recognize the difference between a pattern and my heart.
Mm.
And so that's pretty damn cool. And so that's like an example of how I'm working with things right now. But I have a lot of, like I walk around a lot of times and I can't tell if my dick's numb or if I'm really like living from that place. And like, there's all this identity around the male genitalia. It's like, it's got to be big. It's got to be strong. It's got to conquer. It's got to destroy stuff. Don't smile while you're making love, because no men in a porn's ever done that before. Don't be goofy, because everything we've been conditioned is to see that men are dominant, men are this. When like, dude, you know how attractive it is to a woman if you're like wearing a wig and like laughing or being, women love that. But like, we can't even begin to embrace that for a little bit as a man, because we've got to embody this killer, because men want the killer. And I tell you, like, so anyway, that's a lot of the stuff that I do think about, but never talk about.
Mm.
But
well, we gotta hear on Millionaire Mindcast today. I like it, buddy.
Hell not?
Why the hell not? So you've obviously and are consistently putting in a lot of work internally on yourself and really trying to navigate this head game that ultimately ties into a lot of the external results that we see play out in our life. What internal head game has served you at a high level in creating the massive, valuable, impactful businesses that you've created over the last 20 years of your entrepreneurial journey?
I mean, just listening to people really, really deeply, really listening to them, really listening so deeply. I mean, you talk to them and they will tell you exactly where they're at and exactly what they're thinking about and exactly what they want to buy and exactly what their problems are. And you just listen real deep. And like most struggling business owners, their struggle could change in an instant if they really just listen. And that includes like you release a marketing piece, it doesn't work. Listen. You launch a product, it's kind of selling. You want it to sell, but it's not. Listen. And it's as simple as that. Then the addition to that is do not be the expert in the mechanism that you're providing. So if you believe you have to be the expert, then you'll be very limited and insecure most of your life.
Mm-hmm.
If you believe that you can find experts to solve the problems that you find, then you can really listen to people for their real problems. But if you think you have to know something to be in business, it's a crock of crap.
I mean, that.
Elon Musk doesn't know how to make his cars. Elon Musk doesn't know how to build the ships to go to Mars. We entrepreneurs, real entrepreneurs, are not the people mastering their mechanisms. They're mastering a business that's accountable to delivering a result for a customer. And that whole distinction is will create a tremendous amount of freedom, because you could, I mean, there are so many problems to be solved in the world, but finding them is akin to like a dog whistle. You blow the thing, but only the dog can hear it. There's that abundance of problems that exist on that plane for the astute business person that knows how to listen, but you don't get it from your mind. You don't get those gifts of business ideas from your mind. You get them by learning how to attune your nervous system and attune the ears to really listen. And then you end up creating really unique products. Like a lot of people get entranced by Amazon stores, build an Amazon store, and Amazon stores really fit for people that have a secret lower self-esteem in business, that doesn't really believe that they could actually start a real business, but maybe they could get away with one on Amazon. I can see myself putting a product on Amazon and getting it sold, but I don't think I could actually see myself starting a full-on business myself. And so it's very appealing, and it'd be a good place to build your confidence. But if you go on Amazon, you try to start thinking about selling products, then you start looking at product categories. You start seeing how many competitors there are. You start seeing if you can drop ship it. You start seeing all these things. And before long, you realize you're greedy, you're narcissistic, you're trying to get away with something, and you're trying to figure out how to make money instead of actually serve someone. So then you switch to now listening, and you think about, whose life would I love to improve? And it's really that simple. And you say, let's look at baby boomers. And so then maybe you start talking to baby boomers, and you're like, hey, what's it like to be a baby boomer? Like, what are the things you think about on a day-to-day basis? Are the morning times hard? Is it afternoon? Is it evenings that are hard? What are some of the things that you didn't expect that would be a problem that are actually a problem at your age? What are the things that might even be fundamentally awful about your day, if anything? And you're literally just sitting there. And so then you find out that they've got all this joint pain. And so you find out that, you ask them, how are you trying to solve the joint pain right now? And they've got like even prescription drugs, and maybe they go to like physical therapy. But then you find, okay, baby boomers that have severe joint pain. So now you go and you contact an acupuncturist, you contact a naturopathic doctor, you contact an herbalist, and you say, listen, I'm talking to these baby boomers who are suffering from joint pain. Is there an all-natural remedy that you know of that we might be able to create that could really help with that? And then they're like, oh yeah, we could do this and this and this. And you combine the herbalist and the naturopath together, and you combine both of their tinctures into a potion. Now you have a fully unique product that helps baby boomers with joint pain that has no competition. And it came from
Listening.
from listening, and also seeing that you don't want to be the expert.
That's beautiful, man. I love that. It's funny. I just got off a call with a Marine earlier today, and he's been working in this field for a long time, and he's extremely unfulfilled, and he wants to quit his job, and he wants to do it quick, and he wants to take that next step. And
it's great.
I'm curious, you just gave some great insight, first and foremost, of asking quality questions and just listening. Number one, that's going to help you get data up on the board. And then obviously you got to be resourceful enough to go out and find ways to connect the dots, right? And before we dive into, some of the cool stuff that you're working on and some ideas that people might be able to leverage in order to take those next steps in their entrepreneurial journey, what is the mindset people need to succeed in today's current climate?
I just think knowing on a deep level that they can do it.
It's just the deep-rooted belief that you can figure it out. You got the tools within you to make it happen.
I think it's as so simple as, like, in your mind, search your mind. Do you believe honestly that you can do it? You'll probably see that you don't. And then you recognize that as real, but not true. And you hold it as okay. And then you start to make a new decision. It's like if you were asked to do a handstand and you've never done a handstand before, it's not your fault if you think this way. Like, if I asked you to do a handstand, like, automatically, I can't do that. Right? Well,
Yep.
Yes, you could try. You could put your hands up by a wall and just try and kick up and put your feet on a wall. That might be a safe first start. You could do that for a while until it gets stable enough. And so, but you know, I remember I can't do handstands yet, but my like physical, my yoga teacher was like, all right, time to do a handstand. And my brain's like, can't do it. And then I remember, it's like, okay, throw my body up, even if I say I can't. And so I think, you know, if, you know, there's so many different businesses you could start, from Shopify, Amazon, e-commerce, to Facebook ads, to software as a service, to ebooks, to membership sites. I mean, the list is pretty endless. The businesses I always recommend are selling courses, and then also software as a service. Those are my most favorite businesses to start. Courses and SaaS. But in those realms, it's yeah, I mean, if you had a deep rooted belief that just said, you know, I can do this, and you'll start to, it'll take some honesty and some vulnerability to maybe get there. But that's what I'd say.
So as someone is maybe early on in their journey right now, and they're going, all right, I want to follow what this Dane Maxwell dude's up to. I want to see what he's got going on and some of the cool stuff that you're working on. Where should they go in order to get a little bit more insight? And I know we're going to put all of your links and all your handles and all your info, millionairemindcast.com. So guys, be sure to go check that out. But if you had some tools or resources to share with them right now today on the podcast, what do you want to share with them?
Well, thank you for allowing that opportunity. So I've got a wonderful book, and I don't want you to buy it. But what I'd like you to do is get an excerpt of it. And the excerpt that I will give you guys, and it'll go, you can find it at startfromzero.com/mindcast. Special URL for your guys.
There we go.
Startfromzero.com/mindcast. And there's no email capture required, because that's not technically free. And it's just a legit free book excerpt. In the book excerpt, we'll walk you through a 5-question process that you can use to listen to people and find not only painful problems, but product ideas. And it'll show you how I found a great product idea and what I would do with it. But it'll show you how I did it based on the 5 questions. And, you know, I'm going to be putting on a training sometime next year, even. It'll probably start in January. And it flabbergasts me that entrepreneurial training programs aren't doing this, but entrepreneurship is a sport. It is a fitness. And yet we have these courses that come out that expect people to build companies without actually training the muscles over and over and over again.
Great point.
So it's not that, like, if people like struggle with business, it's not that you struggle with business, it's that you haven't just put in the adequate practice. So imagine if you got a chance, an environment to build like 4 different businesses in a rapid period of time, and each business was built just to practice building. You would know how to. So Start From Zero is the book, and it'll be a 4-month incubator where you'll come in and you'll repeatedly, it'll be like 3 hours a day, every day, 4 months, no days off, time to see what you're made of. You show up every day and you work for 3 hours and you practice basic fundamentals like the 5-question process. And if you've done the 5-question process like 100 times, each time you do that process, it builds your entrepreneurial brain. And then I would also just remind people that you're worthy of helping someone, and you're worthy of solving someone's problem. So the training program, I don't have any details on it now, but I'm just very passionate. I want to create a container where people can repeatedly practice something over and over again and not be expected to get it the first time. That's what I say.
I love it. Well, we'll be sure to include that link. You guys heard it, but if you didn't get a chance to take that down, millionairemindcast.com, we'll be sure to have that in the show notes. What are some of the things that you're paying attention to right now that you want to weaponize people against and or push more into because you believe it will serve them at a really high level, or yourself?
It's slow, but it's not. But if you if you go slow, train your entrepreneurial brain like you would your body as a fitness muscle. So like do the reps and do it slow. And if you do it slow, you'll become a master. And so that's what I would say.
How does someone exercise patience, right? That's such a hard thing for so many people, especially in the world we live in today.
Yeah, it's good. So realize the agitation that you're in. You're probably if you want to go fast, you're likely without realizing it in a state of survival, and you're not in a state of relaxed, regenerative place. And so if you're in a state of survival and you're trying to become successful while you're stressed or anxious, any course you buy or training you take won't go as deep.
Makes sense.
So I'd recognize if you're in a state of survival, and then recognize that you might be running some pain that if you just sat and got present with, you'd get pretty clear on what you need to do. And once you're there and relaxed, if you did like say the excerpt will walk you through doing the 5-question process every day for 7 days, you'll find 7 new ideas to build a business around. If you did that once a day for 7 days, and it's a 5-question process that takes like 10 minutes for a conversation. So you don't get an idea right away, but imagine how confident you would feel. I mean, you actually will get an idea right away, but imagine how confident you would feel if you put in the work once to do it right, and then you'd have it forever.
Yeah.
And you want to have, with all the business options around, from the Amazon to the Shopify to all those things I mentioned, the ones I didn't even mention, you want to have the heart of an entrepreneur in the center of it all, so that you could successfully execute any of those. That level of training is available with the thinking that I'm talking about. So you want to train the heart of an entrepreneur. You want to train it correctly. You want to do it slow and put in the reps so that you have it. So you realize that, entrepreneurs are just as flawed as the rest of us. We just have a little more practice.
Does the training of an entrepreneur, does it look the same for everybody, or is it different based on who you are and what industry you're in and what your skill set is? Or are there some core training fundamentals and principles that people can subscribe to?
Yeah, they are all in the book. Start from zero. And there's also like 15 case studies in that book of like 15 people that built companies, and it shows the customer, the problem, the solution, the offer. It shows the revenue, shows all that stuff. It shows a 26-factor analysis of their personality, so you can see underneath the hood of every successful entrepreneur. You can take the same personality test and see where you rank up against these people. I just want to make entrepreneurship really possible for people. So in that book, there's 4 brains that you can build. And if you focus on building these 4 different brains, you become a superhuman, profitable creator. Like, you just create really profitable enterprise. And most entrepreneurs only have like 2 or 3 of these, or maybe even 1, and they still get away with being successful. But when you have all 4, you just kind of just like create automatically by a byproduct. And there's a surveyor, the tiller, the planter, and the gardener. Survey the land, till the land, plant the seeds, grow the garden. And those 4 things have very specific skills. In the tiller, where you find the seed to plant, that's akin to asking those 5 questions, right? When it comes to planting the product, planting the seed, that's about how to become a humble product creator. And that's got like 8 distinctions, 4 product killers, 4 intentions, and 4 goals. And when you map all those things onto your mind when you're building products, it's very hard to fail. Very, very hard to fail.
I love that. I use that acronym a lot, at least in my world of real estate investing.
Oh, cool.
And just in general, relationship building is every new relationship or every new landscape. It's like raw dirt, the surveyor, right? And you have to go and rototill that dirt, and you got to plant the seeds, and you got to put in the work consistently day in and day out to nurture those seeds. And eventually you do that long enough with the right intentions, the right love, the right consistency, you're going to look up and you're going to have, like you said, a big full garden of crops and fruit, and right. And so I just love that analogy in general. And going back to the 4 brains to become a superhuman, profitable creator, how that can tie into entrepreneurship and really all aspects of life. Extremely powerful. I love that analogy. As you get to this stage of your career, right, and being financially free and building wealth, why are you still doing what you're doing?
It's more pleasurable than anything else that I could do. It's a lot of pleasure.
Is anything tied to money or wealth creation, or is it more impact and influence? Is it selfish and how it makes you feel, or mixture of all the above?
Let's see. It is stressful in some sense of the word, but not really too bad. I'd say providing a lifetime legacy level of wealth for my family is a big driver.
Do you have kids?
Yep. I've got a baby girl. She's 4 months old.
Oh, nice, dude. That's awesome.
That's really nice. But if I making a difference means the world to me. Hand on heart, making a difference means the world to me. And it's a unique gift to be good at business. And it's almost like a little bit of an art, and if you look at artists like Camille Corot, the famous landscape painter, when he died, he was 80, and he was like, oh, if I could only live 80 more years, the things I would paint. And that was when he was 80.
Wow.
He loved doing so much. I don't know if I'll say that when I'm 80 about business, but if every day I can wake up and make a difference for someone, that means a lot to me. That means a lot more than anything else that I can do. I
agree, man. Couldn't agree more. And I just want to acknowledge you for the difference you've obviously made in a lot of people's lives. I would have never known your name if you didn't make an impact in some of my mentors and great friends' lives and in their businesses. So you're definitely accomplishing that mission and continuing to expand, that ripple effect. And I appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule and jumping on the show and sharing some of your thoughts and things that you haven't talked about maybe before. And, in general, I know there's going to be a lot of people that want to know more about you and following your events coming up and your website. So what are the best social, platforms or handles that they can reach out to you on or follow you on and get more information?
I think just if you do startfromzero.com/mindcast, you'll see the excerpt, you'll see the podcast of ours you can listen to where I tell people how to make money based on their situation, and you'll see ways to contact me there. And I think the best thing you could really ever do is get yourself that book, put it on a nightstand, and just read it until you know it back to cover and your heart knows every page.
Well, I'm looking forward to grabbing it. Guys, be sure to check out millionairemindcast.com to grab all the links to get the excerpt and see all the cool stuff that Dane's up to. And Dane, brother, I appreciate you, man. Look forward to staying in touch.
Me too.
And keep making waves, man. Keep doing what you're doing.
Thanks, bro.